feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hit you with a win. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to an angry, pissed off, frustrated version of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. I'm your host tonight, Rob, joined by Biscuit, Bork, and Shane. Guys, a frustrating series against the Giants, followed by a frustrating series against the Colorado Rockies. Where do we start? First off, how you guys doing? I should ask that first. How you guys doing tonight?
I'll start. I'm doing fine, I guess. In terms of everything else in life, if you ask me how I'm doing with the Phillies, I would say not so well. Once again, we're in this place that the Phillies always kind of leave us, where
we're never
sure
with this.
Yes, we're never sure if they're going to be a good team or a bad team or just plain old mediocre, and we're going to stay this way until about September. And by that time, we're going to know our answer, and it's going to be the same end result, which is disappointment. But I'm doing fine other than that.
Yeah,
very well.
I would pretty much echo Biscuit. Other than the Phillies, you ask me how the Phillies are doing, I would say, well, they suck, and I don't want to talk about it. But on this podcast, I will talk about it. That's where I throw out all my frustration, and then to everyone else, just shut up. I don't want to talk about it. But when it comes to everything else in life, yeah, it's been good. I've been doing well. The weather's been nice, so it's been nice to get out and all that, or sit back out on the porch again and all that. So it's been nice being able to do that. But in terms of the Phillies, not so nice. Where, like you said, where to start, pick it, because in both of these series, you only have one good game.
Yeah, it's been a struggle, and I'm definitely in the same boat as you. I don't like to talk about it aside from when we're doing this podcast here. Then I just let all the frustrations fly. So yeah, same boat. And also joined for the first time in a while by Shane. How you doing, Shane?
Significantly better than you guys. Holy shit. I don't know who's going to listen to this podcast after the first 90 seconds of this show. Oh, my God. Do you guys all need therapy? You doing okay? You guys need to see a sports psychologist?
I mean, I've got my beer right now, so I'm good.
Oh, sure. That's healthy. Let's treat yourself with a downer. Well done. That should work out well. Look, man, the Phillies are back. I think the only frustrating thing to me, I mean, look, outside of the things you guys said, is the fact that the division as a whole right now is kind of underwhelming. We've had our share of opportunities to create an early lead here in this season, and they haven't been able to do that. But again, with the rest of the division struggling, we got some time to figure this shit out. That's fine.
For what it's worth, Atlanta had one hit in 14 innings today.
And Madison Bumgarner, holy crap.
That's also bullshit. I agree with Jeff Passan. If you can make a 7-inning game official, it is bullshit that the no-hitter is not considered official. I agree with, he tweeted about that. If you can make a 7-inning game official between the PA and Union, make the, and I don't usually curse on the podcast, but make the fucking 7-inning no-hitter official.
Tell us how you really feel, Bork. Yeah, put an asterisk next to it. Just do that. That's all I need to do. Anyway, back to the Phillies, the frustrating topic that we have at hand today. Coming off a 12-2 loss, it started off very well. Bryce was crushing the baseball, one in the first inning, a longer one in the third inning. Everything was looking good. They were up 2-0. And then the fourth inning happened. And Chase Anderson got into a little bit of trouble. He left that trouble out there for David Hale, and David Hale allowed all that trouble to come to the plate in the form of one bad 3-2 pitch with 2 outs to Trevor Story. Back-breaking grand slam that broke the game wide open. From that point, it was all over. The Rockies added a few more runs after that, ended up with a 12-2 decision. So the Phillies losing 2 out of 3 out in Colorado after losing 2 out of 3 to the Gabe Kapler-led San Francisco Giants. And guys, I mentioned David Hale giving up that grand slam because one of the things that was supposedly so vastly improved over the offseason was the bullpen. And it started off great. It started off very well in the first couple of weeks of the season, and then they had some injuries. Archie Bradley went down. Alvarado, he dealt with his thing. And the last couple of series, the last 2 or 3 series, really, the bullpen has kind of not been very good. Is this an alarming thing to you, or do you think it's just, a brief struggle that'll pass? Shane, we'll start with you.
I mean, it's alarming in the sense that it's happened over 3-4 days in a row now. But it's baseball. I mean, it's 162 games. Like this bullpen, no matter what you want to think, over these we'll call it the last 2 series as a whole, largely successful this year. It's just come up small in a series that is going to be blown out of proportion, win or lose, against San Francisco because of the Gabe Kapler aspect and the fact that Girardi hasn't been good. And then look, Colorado, we just don't play well there. It just is what it is. And it's a difficult place to pitch regardless. So I'm not long-term concerned at all. I think the talent is there. I think that this is going to happen to every single team in baseball.
Fair enough. I tend to agree. Baseball is such a long season. We still have 141 games left, I believe, after this. And, there's streaks. They go on winning streaks. They go on losing streaks, hot streaks, cold streaks. The bullpen, I think Archie Bradley, when he comes back, that'll be a huge boost to them. So I'm not ready to say that it's the same thing as last year because I think they're vastly improved from that. But it is really frustrating to see them kind of going back to what they were doing last season. Biscuit, how do you feel about this?
Well, I would say more what's concerning me than the bullpen performing how it's been. I think, and you touched a little bit on this, Rob, with Archie Bradley being on the injured list. He'll eventually come back, and Jose Alvarado being on the COVID protocol list. He's another big arm that you're lacking right now. So I think the thing that's more concerning than the bullpen underperforming is how they're being used by the manager, who Shane mentioned. Girardi hasn't been good. And I think back to the Connor Brogdon snafu when he gave up 2 3-run home runs in 1 inning. You could pull him after he gave up the first 3-run home run when you knew he didn't have it. He was just left in the game to kind of bleed out there. And today, why would you go to the worst reliever in your bullpen when you have a salvageable game with 1 out left? You just needed to get 1 out. And why would you turn to David Hale to get out of a bases loaded jam with Trevor Story at the plate? That's what I want to know. You could turn there are why not Brendan Kinsler? I understand maybe you want to preserve that guy. It was earlier in the game. I understand that. But that's a salvageable game. And I get it is a long season, and it's not, the 60-game stretch anymore where you feel like you need to micromanage and every game is so critical. But, for God's sakes, you need to start winning on the road, and you have to stop losing to these piss-poor teams. And it just never changes. San Francisco was another series. Like I said, going back to the Brogdon issue, these are winnable games, and you should be running circles around these teams. These teams are not good. The fact that they let Gabe Kapler come back into Philadelphia and make him look like he was God's gift to the earth compared to Joe Girardi, that's pathetic. That's pathetic. This is a better team, and I really think people should start getting a little more peeved off.
Yeah, I'm frustrated as well, and let it all fly, Biscuit. This is where you can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I agree with Biscuit. I think the bullpen's been mismanaged a lot. I will say I think the Rockies are a bad team. I will have to say TBD on San Fran, since against everybody that is also not us, they've been pretty good this year to get to 14-8. But yeah, the Rockies are shit.
I wonder if the manager has anything to do with that.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah, it could be the former manager of the Phillies having something to do with that 14-8 record there. But anyway, back to how much Joe Girardi's been sucking. Yeah, he hasn't been doing too good with the bullpen. But obviously a big issue is not – I think it's obviously what kind of like back to what Shane said. It's 162 season. I think some people from listening to social media, from watching the poison of social media, are still stuck in last year's time warp of, oh my God, this season's almost over. We have to – and it's like, no, we still have like 140 games to go. And the big thing is, I don't think it's coincidental the bullpen struggles in these two series matched up with one Bradley being out and then Jose Alvarado going on the COVID list. I think that's just the way it unfortunately is. I agree with Biscuit. Why in fuck's sake are you putting in David Hale with the bases loaded when you have Brogdon again, who did struggle in San Francisco, but Girardi himself said we're still very confident in the kid, and you could have put him in. Kinchler, I think, is probably the best option. Biscuit put him up; he's a veteran, so you put
even Coonrod is throwing well this year.
Exactly.
Coonrod's had one bad outing.
You have actual talent in the bullpen, and we're going to David Hale for some reason. Like, come on.
It makes no sense.
You have Wheeler on the mound tomorrow. You can rely on him to kind of get into, the 6th or 7th inning or later. Like, play your cards right, Girardi.
Or Howard sucked in this game, but was good his last outing. If you're going to ask me to pick between those two, it's Spencer Howard a million times a million. I'm not picking David Hale in that situation either. You're picking between those two, and he's the guy you went to next. So that just kind of made you look worse in this situation. But you should have went to one of the veterans. I don't know why they didn't, but it is what it is. The Phillies have sucked in Colorado since 2012 when they won when Mike Fontenot, remember him? And Ty Wigginton were in our lineup. Haven't won since then. It's just a damn disgrace. And the bad on the road, they have to find a way to do it in not San Francisco, the other S in St. Louis. Otherwise, it's just going to be a pitiful all-around road trip for them if they are not able to at least split St. Louis, which we'll get to later because this series was minus one game was just a complete shit show, and you almost don't even remember they won the middle game because of just how bad the bullpen blew the first game. Vinny didn't pitch. He pitched in the fourth inning, but pitched all right. Giving up 2, you should still be able to win that game. They did bad that game, and then we went 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position, so just absolute shit. And then in the last game, you just got torched. So it makes you forget they even won the middle game almost. So hopefully,
by the way,
have a better series.
That's another factor. The fact that Matt Moore went down, and not that he was pitching well because he's pitching like shit, but the fact that Velasquez, then you have to move him into the rotation to take that start, which means you're even more shorthanded in the bullpen. And Velasquez, if he didn't have to make that start in the beginning of the series, maybe he's available to come into that situation today. Who knows? I mean, injuries all around really affecting how the bullpen is doing right now, and the pitching staff as a whole. And
I'm not sure how much better I would have felt with Vinny in a bases loaded situation to Trevor Story, but yeah, I get your drift.
Yeah, no. David Hale, he's this year's version of Clay Condrey. He's the extra guy in the bullpen who you put in when the game's a blowout just to eat some innings.
I remember.
Well, look, I'll even go as far to say this. I think if you're at the bottom of your lineup and you want to bring David Hale into that situation, it's the 4th inning. There's some time that if things, get a little dicey, you could come back. That's a risk I'm willing to take then if it's the bottom of the lineup. But when you have Trevor Story up at the plate, who is more likely than not going to do damage, I just think it's a no-brainer. And there's been a bunch of these types of situations throughout the season so far where it's Girardi with the weird double switches or Girardi with the weird bullpen moves. I don't know. It just really makes you think that Gabe Kapler, at least he made me feel confident that this team could be 500 or at best slightly above 500. But I don't have that same confidence right now with Girardi, especially after being under 500 this year. And so far, we're just seeing a continuation of what we got in 2020 and at the end of 2019 as well.
Yeah, it's
10-11 right now, right? I think.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Part of the Girardi thing that worries me is the fact that this game has changed since he was successful. And the last time he was successful, he's managing a stacked AL roster with an unbelievable bullpen that really couldn't fuck up.
That was basically an American League All-Star team that he had.
So it was insane. It's, shit, any of you guys could have went in there and managed that team to similar success. And it's not a shot at any of you. That's just how good that Yankees team was. But man, we're going to hear about the Gabe Kapler thing forever, and especially because
Yes.
I do believe that unfortunately Kapler is going to. I think he's going to keep getting bounced around to cities that just shouldn't win, and I think he's always going to take a team that shouldn't win and make them significantly better than what they should. But I don't believe he's the manager strong enough to take an amazing team or a really gifted team and win with that team. I don't know that what he does works, but so that's what Girardi was brought here for, to be that kind of a manager. But the game's changed. I mean, what is the most important thing to have in your bullpen now? It's no longer a closer. It's a high leverage guy. And I don't know how much more high leverage you get than a very winnable ball game early on, bases loaded, 2 down, and Trevor Story, a guy who, by the way, was not woken up until he played the Phillies, as is every player in every sport.
What else is
a slump? Play a Philadelphia team. You will come out of it. But like the fact that in his brain, David Hale, the least sexiest option out there I would have rather pitched Roman Quinn. Like, I just don't. If you're going to wave the white flag,
Bring Wilson Valdez.
Don't even let him throw. And that's what's really discouraging, because that to me is I don't have the confidence that we should have in a manager like Joe Girardi. If you don't understand high leverage and that it is completely appropriate to burn an arm in the 4th, 5th, or 6th inning, whatever it may be, in a crucial situation like that, shit, I don't want you managing my baseball team. And that is alarming. To take it back to what you asked me earlier, Rob, I don't have any question of the talent in the bullpen. I believe there's enough there to be a successful bullpen. But to agree with Biscuit and where this has gone, I do question Girardi right now. I question him from everything with sticking to a lineup entirely too long for the offensive side of things, to the weird double switches you guys mentioned. This has been not super encouraging with Girardi thus far, and it's really, really upsetting.
Well, at the end of the day,
go ahead.
Well, at the end of the day, he was supposed to be a difference maker. That's what everyone said. You're getting a difference maker. The guy's going to put a winning product on the field. He's got the drive. Where is that? He looks like his head's not even in the game half the time. He's doing, everything we alluded to and talked about so far. I just feel like as much as we can try to get players in here to make the on-field product better, it's always just a step back, and that's frustrating. And that's, not necessarily all on Girardi. This roster's still, pretty flawed, as, much as improvements have been made. But still, it just seems like nothing ever will improve.
Yeah, I mean, I think they brought it up on Phillies Talk, and I was wondering your guys' opinion on it. If this was Kapler in this stretch, he would have been getting his head torn off. Girardi has the resume, but even Salisbury kind of hinted at it. He's almost like his mindset and how he talks after games is not that much different than Kapler. He's almost Kapler with a resume and still is not getting people to come at him.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
They're talking about it on WIP this past week when we were playing the Giants. And, yeah, I have to agree. And it sucks for me because I was a huge fan of the signing of Girardi, much as I was a huge fan of the firing of Gabe Kapler. And, fuck, I'm as disappointed as anybody with the way it's turned out. I mean, yeah, I'm paying attention to these post-game interviews that he does and the way that he talks about the team's performances. He's a lot like Kapler in that. I mean, he's a lot like Kapler to me in the fact that he sometimes tries to put a positive spin where a positive spin really shouldn't be put, and the fact that he's come out and he's kind of been, giving answers that us fans don't want to hear, like a little bit. I mean, yes, I know I said earlier in the podcast that it's a long season. We got 140 games left, but I don't exactly want to be hearing that from the manager. I want to hear a manager who's got some emotion going, who's showing some.
Listen.
Fair enough.
Like, what are you expecting? I mean, how many coaches in any of the 4 major sports right now are that lively and that entertaining to listen to? Everyone's got a PR team sitting there saying, this is how you need to answer these, because they have to juggle how everything is going to be spun. Don't listen. Pay attention to what happens on the field.
It is boring how a lot of guys do it. Unless it's just Tortorella in hockey, it is boring how a lot of post-game press conferences are.
I just wouldn't put stock in things that these guys have writers literally sitting there saying, this is how we have to respond to these particular things. Some of it is because, look, the way the world has changed now, you can't exactly speak to players or speak about players as freely as you may have wanted to in previous decades and previous eras of the game. It's just not that world anymore, as much as we all probably wish it were in some capacities. I just wouldn't put any stock in what you're hearing in these post games. It's not positive spin. It's literally just him trying to fucking get through it. It is the equivalent of, I appreciate you axing. I appreciate you axing. Thanks for axing. It's a good question. Thanks for that. That's all it is. It's Marshawn Lynch.
You know, I'm just saying though, is that when the Phillies hired Joe Girardi to be their manager, I think myself and I think a lot of other people were expecting a guy who would be straightforward, who would be completely honest with the answers that he's given to the media, and we haven't gotten that. And that's only one part of the reason why a lot of us are disappointed. As you guys mentioned, the usage of the bullpen and the lineup decisions have been really questionable as well. But it's one of the things that kind of adds to the frustration.
The only things to be positive about, Rob, are how Harper's playing, how Reese has been playing lately, Didi hitting, not fielding. JT's been all right still, and then Nick Maton decided to do something only a bunch of people have done
I don't think you
since
can
the
say only
40s
things
earlier,
positive and then say
and then
four
Stoddard.
things.
So, yeah, but it's really for 4 individuals, though. So it's not going to help your entire – baseball is not an individualized sport. So unless if you get your whole team hitting and you get all those specific people up consistently with people on base, you're going to continuously have these 0 for 10, 2 for 10, or whatever the hell it is, with runners in scoring position games. So I'm happy that those guys are doing good individually, but baseball's not an individual sport. It's the most team sport probably out. Like, yes, you have individual stats, but you're not going to win based off of one guy. Look at the Angels. They would have won years ago. So I think the Phillies just need to play better together as a team, and they're not doing that well. They just keep having one guy step up each game. Like they would have got swept in this series if it wasn't for Hoskins.
With the 2 homers.
So they just keep having individuals. Moniak, who sucked other than a couple at bats, they would have lost that one game if it wasn't for him stepping up, like Salisbury said on Phillies Talk. So I mean, it's all usually just one individual. You never seen a great, other than maybe in 2 select games this year, a great complete team game, and that's been disappointing. But from a positive spin, I'm just happy those guys are doing well, and a young guy came up and is having success, where lately we've seen our young guys come up and do the opposite. So it's nice to see that happen from the forefront here.
It is nice to see that. Unfortunately, though, as you mentioned, the lineup is kind of bogged down by a couple guys who are not performing. We got Andrew McCutchen, who's 0 for 4 with 2 Ks today, averaged down to 154 on the season, which is fucking pathetic. Alec Boehm averaged down to 213 after an 0 for 4 today. Although with Boehm, he's hit a lot of balls hard, it seems, that have been just right at fielders. So I think it's just a matter of getting a little bit of luck for him. And then obviously you have that center field position, which has been a black hole no matter who's been out there this whole season. But I want to get back to McCutchen. And Biscuit, I'm going to start with you because I know that you have some real big feelings about this one. What are you thinking about Andrew McCutchen right now? And is it time to make a lineup change, either move him down in the order or just replace him altogether? And, you know, how do you feel about that, Biscuit?
It's just, you know what? It's tough because I really like Andrew McCutchen. I really love the dude. I think he's great for baseball. He's someone I remember watching when I was first getting into baseball as a kid in middle school. And, you know, he was just such a star. He played the game with such gusto. And I just really admired watching him. But seeing him like this stinks, man. And he just really looks cooked. He doesn't look good in the outfield. He doesn't look good at the dish. And everyone said at the beginning of the offseason, and really even last year as well, that as long as Andrew McCutchen is getting on base, you have a good player because he's going to work those strong at bats and get those walks and set up the rest of that lineup. But he's not even doing that anymore. So I don't know if it's fair to say he needs to be completely removed from the lineup together. I do think, you know, with that being said, you got to start getting Brad Miller in that left field spot and getting him in the lineup more. I don't know what that means for the leadoff position or the leadoff spot, but something's got to be done because you're getting no production out of that spot right now. And you could see it. Bryce Harper has 6 home runs and how many RBIs? 10 RBIs?
10 RBIs, yep.
That's not good. That's not good. The offense is not going to thrive when their best player is on a great tear right now and hardly is driving in anyone but himself. That is not going to work. And you really can't blame Hoskins because Hoskins has been playing pretty well. So you got to look at, Mccutchen right there at the top. And it's been brutal. And why I'm so frustrated about it, because I remember when a gent by the name of Michael Brantley was on the free agent market in that offseason heading into the 2019 season. And that's who I really wanted to target. I think there might have been some rumor, some traction there that the Phillies might be interested, but nothing really came to fruition, obviously. But got that 2-year, $32 million deal from the Houston Astros. I think he's still with the Astros and has played very well, has hit over 300 in each season. I think his defense might be questionable, but you want to just talk about a steady presence in the lineup with an impact bat, and you could have had him for a little cheaper than what you ended up giving to Mccutchen, and one of those players is washed and the other one isn't. It's almost I don't know if it's fair to compare the two, but it's like the Jake Arrieta on the offensive side. You have a brief spurt of production in one season, and then the rest it was hardly mediocre at best. So I love Kutch, but I'm also out on him. I don't know if it's fair to say he needs to be completely removed from the lineup. I'm sorry for this long-winded speech, but I do think he needs to be moved down as well.
Yeah,
well, I don't think he could be completely removed because who are you putting in? There's nobody. This team doesn't have better solutions. They don't even have a center field. I like how Moniak hit to opposite field 2 times
year, 4 and 5.
in the last couple. Huh?
Brad Miller hit for a playoff team last year, 4th and 5th.
No, but Brad Miller ain't healthy. That's why he hasn't been in the lineup. He got ruled out for Nick Maton twice because he couldn't play.
Well, he had a stiff
he's
neck.
He's not an option until
he's day to day.
Exactly. So I'm saying he couldn't have played this weekend. So this week you didn't have any better options than Mccutchen through these series because they wanted to see him get going probably in the first series. Then in Coors, that's the stadium. If you're going to break out of a slump, you're going to break out of a slump.
But it's also a great series to have, a power hitter in who hit.
Oh yeah, but he couldn't
spot last year. I agree, but it also goes past this previous series. He's been struggling since the beginning of the season, and you've hardly have seen Brad Miller. And if you're worried about his defense in left field, for God's sakes, we've seen Rhys Hoskins in left field. It can't be much worse. We need the bat.
It can't be much worse than McCutchen was today, letting that ball get by him.
It's abysmal, and I like I said, Rob, it's really upsetting because I love the dude, but he doesn't even look focused. He doesn't even look like his head's all in it, and it's concerning because he's really. You talk about guys who you think really take the time to prepare themselves, and you think Kutch is one of those guys, but it just doesn't look like it right now.
Yeah, and he's got a 300 on base percentage right now. So being that leadoff guy, you need a guy who's getting on base more than 1/3 of the time. So. It's just offensively, defensively, everywhere around. It's been a complete mess with him. Shane, how do you feel about this situation? Do you think that there is any fix for the Phillies in the immediate future?
Look, I do think you need to give Brad Miller the time out there. I'm not a huge Brad Miller fan, but it's hard to deny what he's been able to do and what he did last year and the role that he played last year, again, on a playoff team. Ultimately, look, he's not a long-term answer there either, in my opinion. I am not out on Kutch like you guys are. I think that as players get older and their skill sets change and what their body allows them to do changes, I think the last thing to come around is a player's willingness to listen to their body. And I do think that over the last couple years, Andrew Mccutchen is not the Andrew Mccutchen of MVP. Pittsburgh days. And, we've seen him. He's always been really sure of himself in the box, understanding the strike zone, never swinging outside of the zone, which is doing a ton this year, getting on base constantly. He's always done those things well. And right now it just looks like a dude who's pressing, who understands that he's lost, a step in the outfield, coming back from the injury. To me, I still, at the end of the day, believe that he is very much so just an absolute pro. and an infectious personality. Like once he gets going and gets right, certainly not to the extent that Jimmy Rollins was, but he is that. We've seen what the offense does when he's kind of cooking at the top of the order there, and I think it's imperative that we get him right. But for right now, like getting him right should not be at the detriment of the rest of the lineup. You guys alluded to the 6 home runs and 10 RBIs for Bryce Harper right now. We also have no one in the latter half of our lineup that helps that either. No one's ever on base on this team, it appears. But right now, you got to find someone to put in the leadoff spot, drop Cuts back, and look, take some of the pressure off him. But I do believe he is just too talented of a human being and too much of a pro's pro to not eventually hear his body and understand what he can and cannot do, and then maximize the things that he can and limit or reduce the things that he cannot do. And I believe he'll get that right. I just don't believe that it's in his best interest or the team's best interest to allow that to continue in the leadoff spot right now. So
I think
that's a guy to
Biscuit's
me you flip to
favorite player.
7.
I'm sorry,
I think
Rory.
Biscuit's favorite player is one of your favorite players on the team that got off to a good start, Biscuit, who's unfortunately out at a very inopportune time, would probably be the guy that would lead off with Cut struggling. That would probably be when Segura's on a hot streak. His bat to ball skills are pretty good. When he goes cold, then you might not want him to lead
I
off.
hate
But
Gene Segura.
at least
I
for
wouldn't
the
say he's my
position.
favorite player. I don't hate Gene Segura, but
Well,
he's far from my favorite player.
you're the only person on this podcast that started the quote. You called him Mean Gene before, so I would that puts a little bit respect on his name. So
It's a fun nickname.
I'm just going off of that. So you put some respect on his name, but either way,
Sipo
he could be the
Chambon.
leadoff hitter with his hot streak if people are out. You wouldn't want him in there once he gets cold again. Miller's let off a little bit in his career, but he's not changed a long-term option. And then Maton's a rookie, so even though he's looked pretty good yet, do you want to put that much pressure on a rookie? So it's interesting options. I know JT's done it with Capel, but we don't want his production level bat necessarily leading off. So I think
I don't want JT ever leading off. You just throw that guy sliders low and away all day. I don't know why they don't just over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Well, that just proves my point. Well, there's not many options for a leadoff hitter. Like the Phillies kind of boggled their team to if Kutch can lead off, like you said, Shane, who is, I agree with you. I'm not sure if I'm completely with. He still has a couple steals. He just looks suckish in the field, and that's the big thing. When I've been listening to Phillies talk, they said the biggest thing is not just if you can't hit. If you're not hitting with runners in scoring position and you can't pick it, you're not going to be able to win. And the Kutch has been one of their struggles in the field, and he's also not hitting. So if he gets it going again, then sure, because he hit 256 then 253 last year. He wasn't terrible in his first 2 seasons here. It's just
Hear me out. Hear me out. Here's an idea. Mickey Moniak. I know he has been atrocious at the plate right now, but what better thing for a guy who is he looks like he is just struggling to recognize what is or is not a strike. He looks like he wants to just swing at absolutely fucking everything, and then he swung at everything, and by the time his last at bat comes around, he wants to swing at nothing. But what better way to sit there and calm a guy down and give him a specific role as a leadoff guy to say, hey, like your job is to go up there and work a pitcher. Like do the thing that makes you a productive offensive player. You don't need to hit home runs. You don't need to drive runs in. Work complex at bats. Try to get yourself to first base. He's an above average base runner. And coming out of high school, again, it's a different level of competition. But he was the guy who understood the strike zone. I think that in the immediate, because he cannot, in my opinion, do at this point much worse than what Andrew Mccutchen is going to do. I believe that gives Mickey Moniak a few extra at bats. Mercifully, we maybe not have to see Roman Quinn exist for a little bit and just flip that experiment. What's your thought on that? Any of you?
That makes sense to me. That's what I would say. It makes sense.
I could have said anything. I would have said that.
His
fucking idea.
His scouting.
I was going to say I
makes sense to put him as the leadoff because yes, he's not hitting well, but you just said Kutch looks like Mickey Moniak at the plate himself. So what's really the difference at that point? The
difference is about 150 points of OBC.
Field home run. He hit and then got an opposite field hit. If you can get more at bats, I can see it. I mean, we all said at the beginning of this season, other than Rob, we didn't think this team was a playoff team. I know you went on and changed. I don't know what your thoughts were. But if that's the case, you're
What
still
do you want to know?
trying to
Ask
win.
away.
But you also want to be able to help your future. So if you want to try it. I would say if you're putting one of the youngsters there, though, I'm putting Maton there before Moniak just because he's hitting
I love that
500.
you're still talking about this.
Hitting 500
Yeah.
there before the guy that's
I was
struggling.
being
But if
facetious, just proving a point
Yeah.
that we have little option right now. That's cute that you kept going. Good for you, Bork.
All right, well, Shane, to answer your question, to be honest with you, I hadn't really thought of that. So
Of course you haven't, because it's illogical.
it is illogical, yeah. But I do agree that putting Moniak in that leadoff spot could be beneficial to him, expanding his offensive game. You know, as you said, getting the additional plate appearance. You know, every game or so. Being able to settle into a role, I think, would be big for him, and putting him in a situation where he needs to be, you know, he needs to have good plate discipline, because as you said, he's either swinging at everything or later in the game he's swinging at nothing. So being in that leadoff spot, you need to have that good plate discipline to be the table setter to get on base, and I think that could do a lot to kind of level out Moniak's game a little bit. So I think at the very least it's worth a shot.
Sarcastic questions anymore. That's hilarious.
Oh man.
I mean, at this point, it's just you're not trying. Just for like, you have to help your prospects for every way you can. Where I think if you're getting them more at bats, you put Roman Quinn as a leadoff hitter. What proved to you at any point, shape, and time to this team that he could be a leadoff hitter? So it had to be for some other reason. So if you're trying to get them going, I could see it for that reason. But yes, you're still in the division right now, but that's only because everyone's absolute dog shit right now. Where once they get going, if they get on a hot streak and the Phillies keep playing like this, they'll be right in third place. Where I think you had them projected as third. I know I did. So if that might be how it plays out, you're not just playing for, oh, let's hope that we can get to a playoffs and then suck in the first round like we did against what was it, the Rockies in 07. But it's more, let's try to make this team be in the right foot for this year and next year too. So whatever can get the young guys going. But I would put Maton before Moniak. I just think it's a
Holy
lot
shit!
of pressure.
Someone asked a separate question. This has been like 4 minutes now on something I brought up completely as a joke.
Well, I actually had a separate question before you brought that up. That was going to first go to Biscuit, just because I was curious what our thoughts are on this. If since he's hitting really well, yes, he drives in runs, but I know he's let off at times. I don't think it's been since like his time with the Diamondbacks. But should we just try to lead off Didi until Gene comes back? Since we have a better option.
No. Look, and Shane, as so comedically alluded to this, there's really no good option to be the leadoff hitter on this team. Even when Gene Segura comes back, I guess you put Gene there just because he's hot. He occasionally can work a good at bat and work a count. He can work a count every once in a while. And you know what? Honestly, Shane, he's done it before. And I would say he's probably the guy I would count on being most successful going into that role and getting some production out of there. Because outside of, when he was facing
control. Like, he's so out of control. Like, I don't understand. I mean, he may end up hitting 300 every year, except for when he's a Philly. But, like, he'll get on base 33% of the time. Like, that's almost impossible to walk
Shane,
that.
I understand that. But at the end of the day, as we have, circled on numerous times throughout this discussion, Andrew McCutchen's not the option right now. And is there a better guy in the everyday lineup that you could?
The final answer would be go with the hot hand. I mean, I think you're going to have it in.
Yeah, but at the hot hand,
unorthodox leadoff hitter. Like, I think if you're not going to lead off Kutch, it's going to be an unorthodox leadoff hitter because nobody else is an orthodox leadoff hitter.
The way that Kutch is playing right now, I would rather have Vince Velasquez hitting leadoff.
I mean, yeah.
I would love to make Vince Velasquez the everyday left fielder. I just watched his highlights again. If I could watch him do anything but pitch, I would love it. He's such a likable dude as long as he's not on the mound.
Yeah. I mean,
They
what,
committed
last
Rick
season or 2 years ago he hit a home run. He threw a guy out at home plate. I mean, what
Almost
more do
threw
you want
another
from
guy
your left
out.
fielder?
Yeah,
It was
the
insane.
new
Made
Rick
a
Anthony.
diving catch. Put him out there. Wears tight pants. We'll put some asses in seats. It'll be great.
Oh man. Anyway, there are a couple positive things to talk about with the Philadelphia Phillies. Not many, but there are a few. One of them, Bryce Harper, absolutely hitting the cover off the baseball. 2 long home runs today. He's just been on fire lately. And guys, and Bork, I'll start with you this time. Do you think that this is the Bryce that we're going to see throughout the course of the season more often than not, or do you expect him to just be hot and cold throughout the rest of the year?
Well, Bryce normally, as we know, doesn't get off to the most splendid rising heating of start. So the fact that he's off to this good of a start shows me that I think this is going to be a year that he's going to have a pretty good year. Now, will it be enough to pick up the rest of these assholes sometimes and take them with him? That will be remain to be seen. But as of now, he's definitely doing his job along with the select few we mentioned earlier. So I would say, yeah, I think he's going to have a great season. That would not shock me at all if he's top 5, I would say, in MVP just because of my
We're
kind of
20
lacking
games in.
confidence with
Oh
the
my God.
overall team. So I feel like he'll have good numbers, but you're not going to put a guy in the top 3 if his team doesn't perform all the time, unless if he puts up Trout-esque stats. So I feel like it'll be more top 5 because the Phillies will probably miss the wild card or something by like 3 to 5 games, and then he's not going to be able to win it or be top 3 for that reason. But yeah, I do think he'll have his best season this year. He has his full season. It seemed like he was coming in, and he seems the most confident he's been, honestly, in his entire Phillies career this early in a season, in my opinion. So I think he will have his best season.
Shane, how do you feel about this? Is this the Bryce we're going to get, or is he going to go through hot and cold streaks?
I think he'll finish somewhere between first and a half and second and a half in MVP voting in 2027. No,
All right.
look, man. We know he's a talented guy. We know he's a top 5, to 8 talent across baseball. To him, there's so much more that he brings than what the numbers themselves will lay out. And unfortunately, until you see the rest of this lineup, I don't see how any human on the planet outside of Mike Trout can keep up what Bryce has done thus far with just garbage around him right now. I think that just mentally weighs down on people, and especially someone who clearly is so incredibly passionate about the game of baseball and the city, really. I just think that it's going to be really hard to keep managing. So I hope that we do just enough to stay relevant throughout the season to force the hand of Dombrowski to go out there and make some moves. There's no reason that we should be giving up 40% of our games on purpose by throwing out there Matt Moore and Chase Anderson. And there's no reason that we should have a hole in center field as deep as we do right now. I think if you can fix some of those things and fix some of the things around Bryce, then this kind of production is what you can expect from him, provided that he's not doing it alone.
I will say on Anderson, though, this was his own lone shit outing. The other one, Girardi pinched hit Brad Miller, which I disagreed with. Then he probably could have went
Anderson
5 innings.
eats my ass.
The other was a 7-inning game that he also could have went at least 5 innings, but we pulled him after
and that's part
4.
of the problem. Like,
And the first one was actually 5 innings against the Mets. So I don't think he's been bad other than this outing. It's just he got pulled early in 2 of his first 3, and then this outing it was just a complete shitstorm in the 4th inning. But I didn't want to go on Anderson. I wanted to bring up to Shane is within 3 to 5 games. You think enough for Harper to keep up, not this pace, obviously, but a potential very good top 5 to 10 MVP pace if we're within that threshold of the wild card?
What are you asking me?
If we're within 3 to 5 games of the wild card in that threshold, do you think that's going to keep Harper at a good pace? Because you said an overall team can bring you down. That would keep bringing him up, wouldn't it, if it's within 3 to 5 games?
If we're competitive within the division, I think that's it. I think if you start falling 8, 10, 12 games back, from being within division shot, I think that it's hard mentally to go out there and keep doing that every day. Bryce is a bit of a fuck you guy. He's a little Kobe Bryant-esque, which I love about him. And I believe that he could carry it a little longer than what a normal human could. But I do believe that it's completely unsustainable for anyone other than Mike Trout to do what he has done thus far with the productivity around him. So as long as you are within the shot of a division, I think you're good.
The man's already got a bad back from carrying this team.
All right,
Yeah.
listen, everyone saw that
true.
post.
Oh, man. Biscuit, how do you feel about this? Do you think, Harper, that this is sustainable for him?
Well, I just want to say, Joe Boric, you said at the beginning of this Harper talk that he doesn't get off the hot starts, but the guy over his career has hit over 300 between the months of March and April.
That's always
throughout the
just been
season.
what you hear. I just listen to people I listen to. So
Well,
Holy
MLB
shit,
Network
you don't do
tells me
research?
that.
I look at the numbers because
Thank
the numbers they can't lie to me. That's why I like baseball stats so much. You get the clear picture most of the time. But he's always been good in the month, and honestly, so far we're a good portion through the month already. And this is, I think, the fourth highest batting average he's had in the month of April throughout his career. And it's
Yeah, but look past that, Biscuit. I think the whole point is his first half of the season, he doesn't normally get off the hot starts and then goes on tears in the
I'll
second.
put it to you this way. I liked what I saw from Bryce Harper last year. I think he looked really comfortable in Philly, and I think he's really embracing the city. And I think he's at a point of his career where he doesn't need to be that flashy star anymore. I think he's starting to learn how to take care of his body, knowing that you can have off days every now and again and stay productive. I think Bryce Harper could hit about 35 plus home runs, and I don't know if he'll maintain the batting clip he's hitting at with 328. I think that's going to dip probably into the 270s or 280s, but as long as he's still getting on base, still hitting home runs, that's all you ask from the guy. As long as he's still the guy getting that main production, I take that. So I don't know if he'll be able to maintain this, Rob, but I like what I've been seeing so far, and I'm confident this could be one of the better years of Bryce Harper's career.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't think that he's going to maintain that 338 batting average.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
It would be amazing if he did. I do think that he can be somewhere close to the level that he was in his MVP year. What was that, 2015? Mm-hmm. I think that he could perform somewhere close to that, but as you guys mentioned, without the guys around him doing a whole lot, if they're not getting on base, if they're not doing what they need to do offensively, then he's going to start seeing less and less good pitches to hit. So that's my only concern is about him being able to continue performing the way that he is that if the lineup around him doesn't start improving, then it's going to become harder for him to shoulder more and more of the load offensively. So, but yeah, it's encouraging to see him hit the way that he has so far. And just based off of what I've seen so far, I think that he's in line for having a really, really good season. I'd say his best since his MVP season. You guys?
I had a question just to give you guys then, since we're talking about the lineup around him. If your name's not JT, since he's also at 317, Hoskins has been pretty good of late, but I'll start with Rob. Who do you think around the lineup needs to step up the most? We already talked about Mccutchen, so exclude him, to be able to actually help this out, or select like two people you think really need to show their game a lot more to help Bryce Harper out.
Well, I mentioned how Alec Boehm's batting average is down to 213, but he's had so many hard hit balls that have just been right at fielders. He had a couple more today, and I think that just once he starts getting some balls to drop or hitting some balls over the fence, if he just keeps swinging and making the kind of contact that he has been, I think it's going to come around. I think he's going to get that average up. I think he's going to get that on base percentage up a little bit more. And I think that'll be a big boost offensively if Alec Boehm can get going that way this season.
That makes sense. Shane, who do you think has to step up the most? Even if they're out injured when they come back, that works too, but around this lineup for Bryce?
It's still Alec Boehm. I think Alec Boehm is one of the most integral pieces to really would be any lineup in all of baseball. But you rely on this guy so heavily. I mean, he mentions every single broadcast the success with runners in scoring position. He seems to always be up with runners in scoring position as well. He's not a guy that's going to demonstrate at this point in his career, 35, 40 home run power. He is truly a spread the field in its entirety type of hitter. He's a really difficult hitter to pitch to. And right now he's had some bad luck. He's chased a bit. He seems like he's pressing a little bit as of late in the box as well, which is tough to see, but you expect it because he's young. Once he gets going right, you have a guy that you really don't have to worry about in the middle of the lineup. And if Bryce is going to keep getting on at the clip that he is, same thing with JT, same thing with Didi. With those three guys in front of him in any given night, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there that can be. It wouldn't matter if we're 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. It's probably always going to be Alec Bohm. So that's really, that to me is the biggest fix. So Rob, you're right on that one.
What about you?
I'm right
Biscuit?
every once in a while.
You with both of them on Bohm, or you have another guy?
Bohm's critical, but I think a guy I really thought complimented the offense last year was Didi. He's been fine, I guess, so far to start the season, but I'd like a little more from him. Yes, exactly. He's been fine, but I think the glaring issue with Didi has obviously been the defense. He's looked abysmal at shortstop. That's another very concerning thing. But even at the plate, there's been situations where you always kind of can rely on Didi to get that big hit. I just feel like outside of I think 1 or 2 home runs he hasn't really had that big hit yet that's been a difference maker. And I like that about him, that he could just kind of move the line along, but he hasn't been doing that so much so far this season. So I would say, as critical as Bohm is, Didi's right there too. He's in the meat of that order, middle of that lineup. You got to continue to set it up for the guys at the bottom too, especially if you have Segura still in that like 7 or 8 spot. You need that type of production to be on point. So I'm going to say Didi just for that reason.
Yeah, I actually agree with Biscuit. I had Didi just because if we go his last week, it seemed like right before he went down and Maton had to step in at short, some of that defensive woes, he started struggling a bit at the plate. In the last week, he's only hitting 192. So if that continues, that's going to be an issue. It's just from watching, it seemed like it kind of equaled out to some of those big errors he made, and then he started struggling within this last week, which has been some of his bigger, or the last 2 weeks too, his numbers have gone down his bigger defensive gaps. So I think hopefully he's able to bounce back hitting wise, because he just got his new contract as well. So you obviously don't want to see him struggling on both ends for a foreseeable period of time. So hopefully he's able to pull it back overall hitting wise, draw some better counts, and do what he was doing in the first couple weeks of the season rather than about the last week and a half of the season.
Yeah, agreed with that. I think that Didi, if he gets it together, more so in the field than at the plate, he's been okay at the plate, but if he's able to get it together, then that'll help certainly exponentially. Do you guys have any final thoughts that you want to throw in? And Shane, we'll start with you before we wrap this one up.
Well, I think that Didi's feeling things are completely overblown. And I stick by my Harper top 3.5 MVP candidacy in 2027.
All right, Borg.
Mine is really, you just gotta hit guys in better. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. 0 for 10, 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. If your name's not Bryce or JT or Didi so far this season, along with Reed, you have 4 guys that are driving people in. You need a bottom tier of the lineup. So these guys have to help them out. The leadoff spot and Mccutchen has to help them out. You got to start driving guys in. You can't just rely on 4 people of a 9-person lineup, really 8 now with the pitcher again, but it's the way it is. That's my final thought. Get your asses swinging the bat and actually drive some freaking people in, because yes, the bullpen has blown games, but they also blown some games because your asses can't score enough early, like the game that Vince Velasquez only gave up too. So
okay, Biscuit.
I'd like to dedicate tonight to Zach Plesac and Madison Bumgarner, because the Phillies, you know what, and you know what the craziest part is, the rest of the division has been so bad, man, that the Phillies are still in it, dude. We're gonna ride this. They're gonna be so mediocre all year, but we're gonna be in it to the last day. You watch, buddy. You watch. They'll drag us to the very end, but at least we're not the Braves today, who gave up one hit or had one hit over 14 innings, getting, Mad Bum's ghost, his former self, decided to enter his body today for one dominating performance. God, wow. Baseball, ladies and gentlemen. Go Phils.
Man, yeah, I think the NL East is trying to emulate the NFC East in a way. At this point, we might have a fucking sub 500 division champion. The way this is going, I know it's not. It's not. I know. I'm just. The Braves are gonna get it together. They're gonna be significantly above 500. The Mets probably will as well. Hopefully the Phillies.
Nationals.
But who knows? I don't know about the Nationals. I don't quite buy into them as much. But yeah, the NL East is going to get better, and I just hope that the Phillies are able to get better along with it to at least be able to keep pace and keep things interesting, keep things entertaining deep into September, and make a push for at the very least a wild card spot, if not at least challenge for the division title. But who knows at this point? I do want to give a shout out to Just Food. You can reach them by phone at 215-794-3663. Located in Buckingham Green, Buckingham, PA. Excellent selection of food there. Always good stuff. Their owner, Asian Rob, a great friend of the Always Next to Your Podcast Network. Go ahead, check them out. Once again, located in Buckingham Green in Buckingham, PA. By phone at 215-794-3663. That is Just Food. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Chasing the Pennant podcast, and we'll be back with another one soon.
I used to be revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw shin behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too. He beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.